troubles grow for Conservative Party Chairman Nadhim Zahawi, who is accused of tax avoidance. The UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has asked for an independent probe amid mounting pressure from the opposition. Sunak says there were questions that need answering as the Labour Party turned up the heat on allegations of tax evasion by Zahawi and his alleged penalty settlement with His Majesty's Revenue and Customs Department. An independent ethics advisor will be studying the case.
To safeguard our children's economic inheritance.
Integrity and accountability is really important to me, and clearly in this case there are questions that need answering, and that's why I've asked our independent advisor to get to the bottom of everything, to investigate the matter fully and establish all the facts and provide advice to me on Nadhim Zahawi's compliance with the ministerial code. I'm pleased that Nadhim Zahawi has agreed with that approach and has agreed to fully cooperate with that investigation.
Opposition parties have raised questions on Zahawi's tax payments. The alleged tax evasion relates to Zahawi's controversial multi-million-pound shareholding in the polling company YouGov. Zahawi has come under fire over claims that he tried to avoid tax payments. On Saturday, Zahawi came out with a carefully worded statement saying an error in his tax affairs is accepted by His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, or HMRC, as, quote, careless and not deliberate. Zahawi paid the tax which he owed, as well as a 30% penalty, with the total settlement amounting to an estimated $5.2 million. Labour leaders are calling the issue corrosive to public trust, as the Chancellor, who is entrusted to ask the public to pay their taxes, failed to do so himself. Zahawi's ally said earlier that he will not quit his position. While taking over the Downing Street office last year, Rishi Sunak had taken responsibility to restore integrity and professionalism after the scandals under Boris Johnson and the economic chaos of Liz Truss. But scandals like this are continuing to cast a cloud over a big gap between what Sunak promised and what is playing out. Well, for more on this, we're joined by our correspondent, Alex Isat in London. Alex, the media swarm is now around Nadhim Zahawi, and of course, Rishi Sunak has ordered an investigation. What are you expecting to now play out over the coming hours and days?
I think it's likely that we're going to see probably a resignation, to be honest with you. There seems to be a lot of his own party members that aren't backing him, and they're coming out with more and more reasons not to as well. It isn't just the fact that there is a bit of a timing issue. Exactly when did all this happen? Why has it taken so long to come to the fore? But there's this honesty issue, honesty with the Prime Minister. We understand that maybe Rishi Sunak didn't know that this was going on previously and only found out when the statement was released this week. And then there's honesty with the public as well. Nadhim Zahawi might have been embezzling, or we don't know, these tax issues here when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer. And if that's the case, then he was in charge of HRMC, which can cause a whole lot of issues as well. The public at the moment are already wary of the Conservatives, and this is going to be pushing them further into the doldrums. It's going to give Labour the boost that they need to keep pushing and saying, look, there's so many scandals that are going on with the Conservative government, and Rishi Sunak doesn't seem to be doing very much. The fact that he's asked for this inquiry just has given him the ability to back off a little bit, so he doesn't have to say that he's going to fire one of his cabinet members. He can leave that to the inquiry and see how far that they get, and then they can make a decision. So it does feel like he's not really taking control of this situation, but there are more and more calls for Nadhim Zahawi to actually stand with himself and resign because of the inconsistencies. We're not still 100% clear on all of these, the tax, how much he paid to HMRC. So it's all a bit up in the air, and there does seem a lot of call now from the public, from his own party, from the opposition, for him to step down.
Alex Isat joining us live from London. Many thanks for your insight. And for more on this, we're joined by Dr. Nigel Fletcher, political analyst and political historian at King's College London. Dr. Nigel, many thanks for joining us. Rishi Sunak made very clear when he took over as Prime Minister that integrity and accountability would be at the centre of his leadership. Why hasn't Nadhim Zahawi already been sacked?
Well, I think this is starting to look like a familiar pattern, isn't it? I think, if you look in political history, it's striking to think that, this is a government that, as you say, was begun with the promise of having greater integrity. That's quite a high bar for a government to set itself. And I think this is a familiar pattern we're starting to see now, that you have, as you say, calls for a minister to resign, you have the referral to an independent inquiry, you have the Prime Minister sort of gravely saying that they want to get all of the facts. We've seen this pattern many times before, and I think it does seem to be leading towards the inevitable resignation. But the wider problem is that, of course, this is not the first of these issues we've had under Rishi Sunak's government. And you have to almost feel a bit sorry for him that these things are not attacks on him personally. These are things that are occurring in relation to some of his ministers. And of course, the scandal, which we might talk about in a moment, about Boris Johnson as well. These are things which predate his administration. But I think once he's set that bar, once he's said that you're going to be a government that has integrity and accountability, it is something that he then has to meet. And that's the problem that he's got here. So whilst the drumbeat from the media starts to sort of move towards that inevitable call for resignations here, he's now referred it for an investigation. I think he'll be hoping that the facts are gathered quite quickly to enable him to move on from this.
Dr. Nigel Fletcher, many thanks. Just for now, we'll come back to you later on.